What's up, guys? So today I'm starting a new playlist on my channel for Adrenaline Radeon driver updates. I'm running an RX 5700, and in case you haven't been following my videos at all, if you click on any of my gameplay or test video uploads, you can actually go to the show more, and I do keep an up-to-date driver version of whatever I'm running at the time of the test. So even if I miss a driver update and I'm a bit late to actually update, you'll still see, like, I update it when I update my driver. So basically, I know that a lot of people are still under the impression that Radeon or the RX 5000 series cards have a lot of driver issues. I haven't had any of those, but I did experience them when I first got my card, and that was on the version 19.4 drivers. And basically, I had almost all the symptoms that everyone complains about. So I had OSD flickering, I had black screens, I had my monitor losing display, and I had to turn it on and off. It was like a desync issue with the monitor just going out of sync with the graphics card and just being black, and turning it on and off would regain the image. And I also had random crashing in games. And I put most of it down to early drivers with the RX 5000 series because I think there's an issue with the boost clocks, something to do with the drivers and the BIOS. The cards are just, and the voltages are just slightly out of sync, that they weren't stable. And the reason I came to that conclusion is because I did my own tweaking, and I noticed as soon as I put an undervolt in, or if I increased the stock voltage at stock speeds, or even overclocking, once I did a custom overclocked and stability tested it, I had no issues in regards to crashing. And then in regards to the black screens, it just went away by itself. I think it was even before the 2020 drivers. A few things I did do is I set my motherboard to PCIe 3.0 fixed mode instead of automatic. My motherboard is Z170 with Intel, so it doesn't support PCI 4, but I think there might have been some issue with the PCI switching with a PCIe 4.0 card. So setting it to fixed 3.0, so I can show you here in GPU-Z. Just load this up. You can actually see your PCIe mode. So as you can see here, it's got PCIe 4.0 that the card supports at 3.0. But if I had left it on automatic, it'll actually drop down to as low as PCIe 3.0 one times. As you can see here, it's in times 16. It'll actually drop to PCIe 1.0, sorry, at desktop, like while idling or doing light stuff. So I basically forced 3.0. That stopped the black screens. And the thing that stopped the OSD flickering is to do with a conflict. If you try to use fan profiles in another program, it'll conflict with the actual GPU drivers. Like the Radeon-based drivers have their own fan control, and unless you disable that fan control, which I don't even know if you could, I didn't actually attempt it. As you can see, fan tuning. Oh, you can disable it. So unless you disable it here, you'll have conflicts with other programs. I think in early revisions you couldn't disable it, or it would still conflict. But basically, all I had to do to fix the main flickering issues I had was disable all control in Afterburner. So I don't actually use any of these. This is showing what I've got set in the drivers, but I don't actually load any profiles. As you can see, there's no profile saved here. And the only thing I use Afterburner for is monitoring and to have my OSD up. So if you use it only for an OSD and you're not using fan profiles in Afterburner, you won't have issues. You shouldn't have issues anyway. And I've been running Afterburner through every driver update from 19.4 to 20.9.2, which I'm on now. And another thing is, every driver update I've just installed over the top. So unless you're swapping from a different model GPU, where you definitely want to do a DDU, which is the driver uninstall utility that really wipes all the old cards drivers off your system. Unless you're doing that, I don't think you need to DDU or take it to the extreme and uninstall your drivers every time you update your drivers, unless you're having an issue when you update the drivers. But that can be related to unstable RAM, for example, causing installation corruption, which will look like a driver issue when it's really just you've had this slight RAM instability that corrupts files as you update them. So you want to make sure you're not having a problem like that, and do your memory tests. There's a built-in memory diagnostic on Windows. You can just go Windows Memory Diagnostic, and that will reboot your system, and you run it for like 2 to 3 full passes, which can take a while, and you can't use your computer while you're doing it, but that can at least rule out the possibility that your RAM is actually corrupting your driver installs. So that's just another thing to look at. But the main focus of this video today is just to make everyone aware that I'm going to be doing this playlist, because pretty much every driver update, which I've been doing in the background with my videos, I'm going to basically try to notify everyone that there's a driver update to the driver. As you can see, I'm recording with the driver right now to show that it's stable, and I'm also going to run 1 or 2 benchmarks for that driver version to make sure that there's not any glaring issues and whether it's safe enough that you might want to update. But obviously, if you have no problems with your current drivers, unless there's something in the driver notes that compels you to upgrade, you don't have to do this. You don't have to update with me. It's more that just for awareness and to pick up on issues before they become widespread. So you could like see that, like if I find a problem myself, I would assume it would be a pretty bad problem, because literally from the first 2020 driver, I've updated every single version to 20.9.2, and I have not had a single glaring issue. I will share my settings though, because I do believe my settings play a part in avoiding a lot of the issues. So if I go to settings here in the cog, graphics, as you can see, I keep all the fancy stuff off. The only thing I've ever used is image sharpening, and I don't use enhanced sync. Yeah, I don't force anything in the settings. I just leave this AMD optimized. Performance, I think the default might be standard. I just keep that on performance because I don't really notice it at ultra wide resolution. The resolution at ultra wide is high enough that even the anisotropic filtering that you can set to times 16 in some games, even at times 8, it looks basically the same because the resolution is already so high. The clarity is already good. But yeah, that's my settings. And then under display, there's a few others. On 19.4, when I first got my GPU, I also had a scaling issue, but it wasn't breaking anything. It was just the fact that scaling wasn't working properly. So I would like turn it on and I want centered, so whatever resolution should be centered in the screen, and it wasn't doing that. And I tried full panel, and it would go to half my panel. It was acting really weird in 19.4, but that's been long fixed. So I can enable this and use it if I wanted, but I'm just sharing it for the sake of if someone's asking me what settings are in, what settings are you running, this is what I'm running. And then under video, there's nothing special there. And general, this is the tab for disabling stuff. So as you can see, I keep instant replay and all this off. And under, this is another one that can cause issues for some people, especially when they're using other OSDs. You can have it can cause flickering in early driver versions. They might have fixed it by now. I haven't tested. But I keep in-game overlay disabled. I keep most of this disabled, really, the advertisements, the toasts. And really, I just use the recording functionality. So as you can see here, this is my recording settings. And there's streaming too. Like if I want to turn my webcam on, for example, I can go to streaming. You can see I've got the webcam disabled. I've got it on push to talk all the time because I've got the Asus AI cutting out background noise. But if I turn on the camera, you can see there's my camera. It's a bit dark in here. And I can turn it off while... Oh no, there we go. I can turn it off while recording. So that's pretty cool. Like, you can use it while streaming too. The scene editor, you can have different scenes. So, this is pretty handy. You can add more scenes if you want. That is add, right? Add new scene. Yeah, so you can have multiple scenes and put on your own custom overlays and all sorts of stuff. Like basically the stuff you'd want in a streaming tool, but sometimes streaming tools like OBS have issues where they flicker and stutter as well. So you might want to take a look at that if you're streaming with other software and having any problems. But for the most part, I'm just sharing this just to show people what I'm doing or how I'm using the drivers, so that you can replicate it and see if it fixes issues for you. And this is one thing I do between every single driver update. Even if the driver is stable when I go to play a game, like I forgot to do this sometimes, and the drivers have been stable for the past 10 versions. But if I forget to load my custom profile, because I have my undervolt profile that I know is stable for a fact, and I bumped that when I've encountered instability and it's fixed it. So some games, like nearly every game I play can have no instability, but then that one game will have some weird, the screen will go black, or I'll have a problem alt-tabbing, or it'll just crash. And it's weird because all the other games run perfectly fine, but that one game's acting weird. So then I bumped the voltage a bit, and it just turns out that one specific game was triggering some kind of instability from my undervolt. So I was originally running 965 MV, and I bumped it up to 970, and that got rid of an issue in... It might have been the Metro Exodus benchmark I was having some issues in. But anyway, that's just just a tidbit that I'm sharing so that you can get an idea of how to do an undervolt and how to maintain its stability. And sometimes it's not the undervolt that's causing a problem, it's just something wrong with the game. and you have to kind of be careful not to just keep increasing your undervolt, because then you end up with no benefits, because the stock voltage is 1 volt basically. So I'm only 30 MV under the stock driver voltage, and so if I reset this here, even while recording, it should be fine. And I go to manual, you can actually see what the default voltage is. It's 1008. So it's not a big difference, but you know, every little bit helps. Why not? And I've maintained stability doing this, but I load this up mainly because of the fan profile. So the fan profile is also saved to my undervolt profile. I could make a stock profile and, you know, copy the stock settings and still, you know, you can do whatever you want. But I think the fan profile helps a lot with stability too. Because you can have a core temp that's low and you can have a hotspot temp that's low, but something else on the card can be heating up that's only passively cooled enough when you turn the fan speed up. So there could just be something on your card that's overheating, another component, because your measurement tools do not measure every single component on the card. And if there's just a certain hotspot that doesn't have a temperature probe, then at 65%, your temps might be great already, but that one component is getting a little hot and causing instability. And that's why I always run a custom fan profile. But I am running an Arctic Xtreme IV cooler, which only goes up to 2000 RPM with triple fans, and that is virtually silent for me because I always game with the headset. If I take the headset off and listen to the PC, I can hear like a slight fan noise, but it's not intrusive for me. Compared to the stock pulse cooler that runs up to 3000 RPM and sounds like having a vacuum right next to your head, because my PC is on the table. So just so everyone's aware, if you're running a 3000 RPM cooler, you might want to back this off and have this at like 70 max instead. And then you might get some higher temps, but again, you do want to keep your noise in check to a certain degree when gaming. So that's just to share, and I do keep a little bit of an increased power limit, which seems counterintuitive to the undervolt. But for the most part, the card runs at this when I'm gaming. The power limit, I'm not exactly sure if it's affecting anything. I had to turn it down to like -10 when I was testing a mining program to see how the Ethernet hash to see how it was mining ETH, and I could only really make a difference to my power usage by getting it into the negatives. So this kind of maybe isn't doing anything. Like it's not having a large impact on my actual power consumption. So now that I've shared all that, this is the 20.9.2 drivers that I've updated to. If you check the patch notes, there is literally nothing special here. There's a few fixed issues. So I haven't had this stutter issue unless I leave games to run however they want. So like in Warzone, if I leave the textures too high and I have the streaming quality on normal instead of low, I'll get stutter. And this might be related to that. They could have optimized VRAM usage to minimize stutter, or related to VRAM usage in Horizon Zero Dawn. But they don't specifically mention VRAM usage on this fixed issue. So I'm not going to like go into those games just to test if I can turn the texture quality up again. I might, if I'm actually playing, I might test that in another playthrough. But for me, it's not. This doesn't mean much because it says some games. It just means it happens intermittently with different configurations in different games. And FreeSync, I don't use that. Screen flickering, maybe observe. See, this is the OSD thing and the conflict with the fan profiles. It actually seems like they've addressed that, but I've been using Afterburner since 19.4, as long as I kept my fan profile through Radeon and not through Afterburner, and I had no flickering. Like, you can watch my older videos from 19.4, and you'll see that I was running Afterburner all the way back then without flickering. Metrics overlay. They've had issues with correct metrics for ages. Like, see this? This has been a fixed issue before. They've said incorrect values for VRAM usage was a thing in previous driver updates. They've said it was fixed, and now they're saying it again. So I think they're still not fixed. And you can see here in known issues, performance metrics incorrectly report higher than expected clock speed. Actually, that's been an issue that's been around for a while, and they've also mentioned fixing it, but then it appears that it wasn't completely fixed. So it's still a known issue, but it's through the performance tuning tab. I'm not sure if it's an issue through Afterburner or not. I guess it could be if it's a sensor issue or a BIOS sensor issue. And yeah, some audio stabilities, still HDMI issues. Anyway, you can see here, if there's something here that applies to you, you might want to update. For me, I only updated for the sake of updating. I didn't update because I needed to. I updated because I wanted to see if the drivers are still stable and make sure there's no bugs for other people. so that I could warn you guys and say, well, don't update to these. Okay, so now that that's done, you can actually see my most recent. This was on 20.9.1. I go back, this one here, Metro Exodus. So my DirectX 12 run 1 result was here, and you can see I was getting. So this is basically the settings I run when I play, when I've been playing Metro Exodus, and you can see I was getting at 3440 by 1440 with high quality, 16 times texture filtering, motion blur off, just all the fancy stuff off. I was getting 60 FPS 99 percentile, so the average, and max 77, minimum 42. And I actually ran, because I was comparing DirectX 11 and DirectX 12 in this, and this is with the, as you can see here, the last driver version, so the one that we were just on. And the side-by-side here at the end, right side is what I run. DirectX 12 is better than DirectX 11, at least on my setup with this card and this CPU. And you can see here the results were very consistent. So I literally got 60.31 on the first run, and you can see the timestamps. Wait, if I move the, sorry, I was moving the, trying to fit them, but you can see 452.02 and 452.49. But you can see how consistent that was. 77, 60, 77, 42, 60, 77, 42. So if there's any glaring issue with the drivers, I would expect the benchmark to be affected. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run the benchmark right now. Recording may impact it, but I was recording in this video actually, so it shouldn't matter. I was recording these benchmarks. This was all one recording, so during benchmarking. So while recording, this is my results. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to close Brave. And 60, 77, 42 is what we're looking for. And I would put like a 1 FPS difference in the margin of error. Now I just have to remember where I had Metro Exodus installed. G drive. I think it was just games, no? Or was it C drive? Epic Games, Metro Exodus. There we are. You have to run it through the folder. So you can see my install path for Metro Exodus, benchmark.exe. I had it saved under High or Ultra. Maybe it didn't save. I had to do a new save. It doesn't matter. High's good enough as long as I set this to how I had it. So low, off, 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 and shading rate 100%. I'll just do one run because that should really tell us a story straight away. And DirectX 12 was the good one. So just so you can see here, and we're going to run that. And it looks like it's crashed. Nah, just kidding. It's probably loading. I haven't been playing Metro Exodus today. Yeah, I can hear my GPU spinning up. It's loading the benchmark. I remember it was a little bit slow the first time I ran it, so because I've been testing other games last night, I was playing a couple other games for a few hours. That would explain why it's taking so long to load up the benchmark the first time. Or it's just not maximized. Oh, there we go. Now it was loading, sorry. I just shouldn't have alt-tabbed out. That was bad. Wait, I'll cancel it. My bad, guys, sorry. I was too impatient. As you can see, it was loading, and then I just canceled it. No. I gotta restart that now. Yeah. Okay. It is a intensive benchmark for my older system. It'll load up quicker the second time around. Sorry about that, guys. I was too impatient, and it could be to do that I'm recording and also talking in the mic. I didn't have my mic on constant recording last time when I benchmarked, so it loaded up a little bit quicker. I don't know. We'll just try again. And there was a bit of a delay in my other video, but I think I was doing something else, like scrolling my mobile while I was recording, so it didn't seem that long, but it actually does take a while to load up. That's what I get for being impatient. Wasting everyone's time. So here we go. Now the metrics in the top right are just so you can see what my undervolt looks like and my fan speeds at gaming load. See, the VRM is really good with this cooler. The VRAM is not bad, but the hotspot's still there. Like, the hotspot's really hard to control. It's somewhere inside the chip, so as far as I can gather. But yeah, as you can see, look at the FPS in the top left. For the most part, it'll go to 71. You'll see 71 a lot, but it updates way too fast to actually follow it properly. If I hit F7, we might get it through Afterburner. And the benchmark, just so you're aware, is like a worst case scenario. So for the majority of gameplay, you'll actually see more closer to the max. So as you can see, that max reading is 75. That's closer to the actual average FPS for normal gameplay in the open world environments. But these lower numbers, the average of 58 and the minimums, are what you see in the most intensive scenes of the game. Which aren't that often, actually. You don't actually come across scenes that tank the FPS so hard. So yeah, as you can see, average 60, max 77, minimum 42. So if I go back and just double check that those results that I had, sorry, I have like a poor memory. 60, 77, 42. So is they even worse, like down to a decimal point? If we try to look at this, 60.31, 60, 77.7, 77.4, 42.8, 42.43. So possibly, but I am transmitting voice. I don't think I was in this video. As you can see, the volume's up, and you can't hear me talking. So yeah, the drivers seem fine as far as the Metro Exodus benchmark goes. I got exactly the same result. You can call that pretty much exact. Even the total frames, 104 104 total time. Total frame time, 104. That's how long it took to run the benchmark. And if the frames are higher or lower, it can affect the time. Total frames 6247, 6279, 6278. Oh, actually, so that is a little bit lower by like 30, but I don't think it matters that much. I had this pre-warmed up though. I was benching before I ran these, and that might have affected the load times, which can slightly affect the total frames. If it's loading up a little bit faster, it just gets that extra second in. But yeah, margin of error. This is the stuff that matters. So the average and the minimum. So 60 and 42, 60 and 42. So yeah, if you're wondering if it's safe to update to these, I would mark them as safe. If you haven't had issues with 20.9.1, you shouldn't have any issues with 20.9.2. And this is going to go into a new playlist where every driver update, I won't talk as much as this very first one because this is like the intro to this playlist. But future driver updates, I'm going to put them into this folder and probably run the same test. And if you'd like me to throw in a different benchmark that you particularly like to see, just let me know, because I will expand the benchmark list and benchmark like however many games people ask me to benchmark. But for me, I don't play that many titles, and Metro Exodus is like a good game for me. It's a nice foundation game. Like if I look at a new GPU, I like to like, for example, if I was going to upgrade my GPU, I actually care about how it would run in Metro Exodus. So that's why I'm using it now as a baseline, and I will add more titles as we go along. Well, I wanted to add the Ashes of Singularity benchmark, but it's very CPU intensive too, and my CPU is pretty old. While Exodus is not as CPU heavy in my experience, so it's more indicative at this resolution of the GPU performance. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.